Hi guys, it's Susana from Madrid, Spain. I'm making this video because I would like to explain a little bit more about my encounter with a dark entity 8 years ago and my kundalini experience 7 years later. About a year ago, and why it is so important to break the deals with dark entities before you can have any kundalini experience. Okay, where do I start? First of all, it took me a lot of time to realize that I had a contract with that being, which I think it was a Draco reptilian being. It could be any other type of demon or being or entity, but for me it was a Draco. I forgot the experience for like 5 years, like not in my mind because I couldn't explain it. But I realized it was real because I started watching videos about people saying, talking about sleep paralysis or being raped or being kidnapped by extraterrestrials and things like that. So I started researching, and I realized that my experience was pretty common. And I also, uh, I understood that if we don't have some kind of you know, deal with this type of beings, it's impossible that they can harm us, okay? Because we are very uh, valid beings. We are, Christians would say sons of God, Buddhists would say that Buddha is within us, and blah blah. We are very powerful beings, okay? We are experiencing uh, a reality in which we are vulnerable, but that's not real. So if you want to wake up, you have to discover your true vulnerability, and you have to start by breaking the deals you have with dark entities. I'm going to tell you how did I break my deal with this Draco being before Kundalini awakening. And it was like going from from the dark side to the light side. It was a very important part of my story, as Susana. Okay. It was a guided meditation, like a self-hypnosis that happened to me spontaneously while I was just sitting in my chair in my desk. I encounter my higher self. Okay, like if my higher self was taking me to a corridor and then to a room, and in that room, when I entered, well, my higher self said before I entered the room, you know what to do. And I said, okay. So I went inside the room. This was all happening in my imagination, okay? Like a self-hypnotic process. But it was not guided by my ego because I didn't know what I was going to find. This is very important because when we do in the astral plane during dreams or during hypnosis, we are affecting our subconscious mind, and what we sign and what we do in the astral plane or the subconscious mind affects the three-dimensional world, the physical world. Okay, so I went inside the room, and it was dark, and I felt there was a being there, and I recognized that this being was a Draco being that had attacked me for 15 minutes and tortured me for 15 minutes 8 years later, or maybe it was like 6 years earlier. And I recognized his energy, okay, and I said very intuitively, hi, I'm sorry, man, I cannot work with you anymore. um, you know we're done. I have to break my contract with you. And this being was like, why? what am I gonna do without you? Because you were a pretty good one to work with. And I was like, like I didn't expect that kind of answer. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I understand that in this world there is good things and bad things, and like people can suffer or be happy. People can live in the dark and be, like in hell, or maybe you can be happy and live love, peace, joy. And I want to choose the love, peace, joy part. Don't, I mean, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to offend you. It's just that that's what I want. Okay. And this being was like insisting, like, okay, but what am I going to do without you? Like, we had a deal. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what deal. I don't know what the deal is about. And I found myself saying thanks to this being that had frightened me and tortured me for 15 minutes 6 years earlier. And I was like, yes, I understand that you woke me up. You woke me up. This is huge stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, because it turns out that in our world, demons and Dracos initiate a lot of people in the path of enlightenment. I know a lot of people is going to say you're fucking crazy. But remember what Jesus did in the desert? Talking to the demon. Remember what Buddha did in the when he was sitting next to the Bodhi tree? He was having a nirvana and the demon tempted him. Okay? And you can also find that Santa Teresa de Jesus, when she had her ecstasy, she didn't know if it was the demon provoking that ecstasy. I don't want to be controversial. I'm not saying that they help us. I'm just saying that suffering and knowing the dark side profoundly wakes us up. Okay? So, I'm going back to the story. I was in that room and I found myself saying thank you to this being. Thank you because you woke me up. This is the same as when we recognize that our suffering has teaches us. Okay? And that's where we take our love and we give it and we say, all right, thank you. Thank you even to the pain, even to the darkness. That is how we recognize our dark side. That is how we recognize that we created that somehow. That we created and allowed that to happen to us because we wanted to learn something. There is no mistake here. Okay. Or maybe there is, I don't know. I just said thank you to this being. And this being didn't want me to go. He was like, yeah, okay. But you're going to work with me. And I was like, no. I'm sorry, I don't know what I owe you. What I know is that there are two different options in this polarity world in which we live. And I want the happy, peace, loving one. Okay. And at this point, this being tried to attack me or was very, very angry, but he couldn't attack me because we were just in a dark room. We were like minds communicating telepathically. So he couldn't do anything, but he was angry. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I hope you find something. Okay, so I just went out of the room and my higher self was outside and she hugged me. And like this, and I started crying. And I started crying in the real life with my real eyes, with my real face. And it was very beautiful because I realized I had done something very important here. Okay. So yes, I guess there are many different ways of breaking deals with Dracos or other type of dark entities. But I just wanted to tell you my story, and just so that you know how important it is. Because a couple of years later, I had my kundalini experience, which was the moment I realized that I am far beyond good and evil. That when we put the good of God as something opposite of the darkness we know here, we have no fucking idea what good is, because it's not the opposite of darkness. It is so far beyond that polarity. And I will explain that in another video. That's enough for today. So thank you for watching. If you like my video, subscribe, and see you in the next video. Bye.